In my lifetime, I've had my fair share of money making occupations in all types of fields, doing all types of things. And today I'm going to talk about possibly my least favorite of them all, my time as a sandwich artist. Now, I wasn't working at a Subway or a Jimmy John's or a Quiznos, but a more health focused sandwich shop. We'll just call it Super Fresh. And when I got hired, I was hired as a sandwich artist, which is basically just their way of making you feel like you weren't basically working at the Chumba. It's really trying to make you feel more like a SpongeBob than a Squidward. But that doesn't matter. So my first day on the job, I show up in my I don't give a fuck because this is work clothes and got to training under the girl who worked my position who was leaving at the end of the week. She was alright, but one thing she did tell me was to be careful of, we'll call him Mike. And she told me as long as you're on his good side, you'll be fine. So I'm like, okay, what the fuck is wrong with Mike? He got anger issues or something? I just got here. And as far as I know, Mike isn't even the manager. He's just the cashier. So I'm like, okay, whatever, cool. Now, the best part of this job is you get free lunch every day. So I would make myself the meanest sandwich I ever had in my life every single day. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I sliced myself an extra fat piece of bread and tucked it away before my shift so at lunch I can make myself an epic mealtime chicken sandwich every day like a fat ass. I really felt like Shaggy and Scooby when I was in that bitch. I mean, my sandwich had more layers than a wedding cake. But yeah. Now, fast forward to the next week, the girl training me is gone, and I got one more week of training to finish with my boy Mike. Now, I've come to find out that while Mike isn't the manager here, he is a manager at another store location. And for some reason, he also pretty much runs things at this location, because I guess the current manager wasn't competent enough for the manager position, but was still the manager. I don't know. Now, we started the day, and Mike seemed pretty chill, just going over what I had to do and on what days of the week. But I started to notice that even though Mike seemed alright with me, every time I got in the kitchen, he was always yelling at somebody. But I figured maybe they were just doing too much back there. But basically, my job was to come in early and prep all the meat, pause, and cheese, and make sure all the ingredients are ready for the day. And then I would go to the grill, and I'd grill up and serve sandwiches. So he was just kind of watching me do my thing, giving me some tips and whatever. And then he decides to pull out the goat cheese. Now, at this job, slicing meat and cheese was done on the slicing machine. But goat cheese isn't exactly made for slicing. So Mike said he was going to show me how to slice it. But just as he's about to do that, a customer shows up. So now it's my job to serve the customers. So Mike says, all right, I'll show you after. Just go help the customer. So I serve the customer. I turn back around and Mike is gone. And then he comes out the kitchen and he tells me to portion out the goat cheese. Now, mind you, I have no idea how the fuck I'm supposed to do this. But I was just told to do it. So I'm like, I guess he thinks I don't need a demo because then why else would he tell me to do it? So the only thing I know at this point is I need to use dental floss to cut the cheese. Get it? Get it? Because cut the cheese. Like cheese, like fart.
Shut your bitch ass up.
Shut the fuck up, you nasty bitch. Nobody gives a shit.
Can you shut the fuck up?
Boy, if you don't shut your
But yeah, so I'm there looking like a toddler playing with moon sand because I was basically just turning every slice into a clump of cream cheese. So now I'm like 5 clumps of cheese deep and I'm looking at the other goat cheese slices and this does not look right at all. So now I'm kind of just standing there like shit, maybe I'll just wait on Mike to come out here and show me how to do it. And as I'm thinking this, Mike shows up and looks down at the oversized cheese curds I have on the counter and this dickhead immediately catches an attitude. Now, I understand that I messed up a couple little portions of cheese, okay, fair enough. But what really annoyed me was this asshole comes up to me and says, what are you doing? I just showed you how to do this. So I told him, actually, I missed it because I had to help the customer and I never got to see how you did it. Assuming he just forgot I was with the customer. But this dickhead says, no, I showed you, you just weren't listening. So now I'm like, oh, okay, I see why I was warned about this guy. Now again, it's my second week and I'm still training at this point, and it's my first day really working with Mike for real, so I just let it go. Now the next day, I come back to training with my boy Michael. Now today, Mike started the day off with a bit of an attitude. And I honestly couldn't tell if it was just him or the goat cheese incident, but I just went with it. So now on day 2 of training with Mike, lunchtime rolls around, and the line for this place is bending around the corner and out of the food court. And I'm in the sandwich section like Hawaii in the 4th, back against the ropes like Muhammad Ali, but the pressure won't faze me. I'm serving up sandwiches faster than your mom when I stay at the house. But then things got out of hand. Now, you see how it usually works for serving orders here is that when customers come up to the counter, I take their order and I make it. And then on top of that, we get online orders printed from the machine. And Mike comes over and clips the orders on my station with a little clip in order for me to see them and make the online orders in between customers. And at some point during this day, I realized that I had just made 4 of the exact same sandwich back to back to back on 4 different tickets. Now, obviously, sometimes people order the same thing, but these were oddly specific, so I noticed it. Now, like I said, it was a lunch rush, and we had like 40 people in line while I'm simultaneously making these online orders. And mind you, I only have 1 grill. And not like a barbecue grill. I had this tiny ass panini press. So really, I can only fit 4 sandwiches on it at a time. Now, as the rush gets bigger, Mike looks over at my grill and gets pissed off because he apparently told me I'm supposed to stuff 6 sandwiches on the grill when it's busy. When he didn't say that, but whatever. So I stuffed 2 sandwiches into the cracks and crevices of the grill. The problem with that is, now because there's so much fucking bread on the grill, the sandwiches are taking twice the amount of time to get done. And at this point, customers are visibly frustrated, and Mike looks over at me and says just serve the sandwiches. So now I'm giving out what are supposed to be grilled sandwiches as slightly above room temp bread sandwiches. I mean, the cheese was still cold, but whatever. But now I have people coming back to the counter asking for the sandwiches to be grilled properly. But of course, our friend Mike is at the cash about 6 feet away from me, just acting like he didn't just tell me to do this. So now I have a line of like 15 sandwiches on the counter waiting to be put back on the grill. But the next thing that happened is what made this day even worse. Because now this fucking asshole turns to me with this stupid ass look on his face and goes, "Hey man, why did you make 4 of the sandwiches? It was only supposed to be 1. Now you remember those 4 sandwich tickets I mentioned earlier? Yeah, this dickhead printed 4 of the same sandwich ticket. And now he was trying to blame me for making 4 of the same sandwich. So at this point, I didn't even want to talk to this guy anymore. Because I wasn't trying to lose my shit on the second week. So I just told him there's multiple tickets, and I ignored whatever else he had to say under his breath for the rest of lunch. Now the end of my shift was coming up, and at the end of every shift, I had to clean my station, wipe down the counters, clean the grill, and make sure the food toppings were all organized and whatnot. Now at Super Fresh, we serve spreads for our sandwiches, which is basically just sauce, but we spread it on. So if any of the spread containers got a bit messy, like had sauce spilling off the edges or whatever, we would just wipe down the edges of the containers to make sure they look presentable. So as I'm cleaning the spread containers with paper towel, Mike comes out the kitchen and asks me to pass him something. But you see, he didn't tell me what to pass him. All he said was, "Hey, can you pass me that?" As he points in the general direction of 6 different things. There's a fucking bread knife, a spread knife, a cutting board, a counter cloth, a fucking grill cleaning tools, all in the same general area. So I'm like, "What do you need?" And he goes, "That," and points at the same general direction. So I'm like, okay, this guy just doesn't know how to ask for what he wants. So I start picking up one item at a time, waiting for him to say that was the item that he needed. And after the second item, this guy kisses his teeth and says, "You really don't know what you're doing." So at this point, I'm just fucking fed up, all right? This is really only the second day I was working with this guy, and he's already done a lot to get under my skin. I mean, everything he's been mad about was shit that happened because of him. So this time, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I got mad. So now I'm telling this guy that he needs to start talking to me with some respect because I am not his child. And as I'm going off on this guy, the whole team is standing there watching. But now all of a sudden, Mike doesn't want to talk anymore. And then he just turned around and walked away to the kitchen. Now, of course, this did make me feel a lot better at the time because Mike knew I was not one to be fucking with like this. But little did I know, things were only going to get worse for me. Alright, so now it's been 2 days that I've been training with Michelangelo over here, and we have already had this passive-aggressive beef going on. I mean, I spoke on my behalf, but now Mike was coming into work every day just completely ignoring me. He also pretty much just stopped training me, and the only things he really said was things he had to absolutely say to me. But other than that, he wouldn't even look in my direction. Now, at first, I just kind of got a laugh out of it, but after a while, I started to notice something, like a dark energy brewing in the air, like something was up. Now, I noticed at this point that Mike was doing anything he could to avoid being near me. If I was in the sandwich station, he was in the kitchen. If I was in the kitchen, he was in the sandwich station. And pretty much, other than the lunch rush, I didn't really see this guy much. But soon, I realized this was far more than just avoiding me. Because you see, I realized that Mike was almost definitely trying to get me fired. Now, because Mike wasn't a manager here, he couldn't fire me. But what he could do was get in the manager's ear, who honestly basically works for him anyways, and try setting me up to get fired. And I'm not even exaggerating this. First day of the next week of work, I was cutting cheese. Now, basically how things work there is you cut enough cheese slices to fill 1 extra container to have all types of cheese always sliced up and ready for lunch. But if you end up slicing any more than that, then you put the extra cheese into another container and you put it in the fridge in the kitchen. So this particular day, I had some extra cheese. So I packed it up and brought it to the kitchen and put it in the fridge. Now, mind you, as I came into the kitchen, Mike saw me and left to the sandwich station area. So I wrap up my container of cheese with plastic wrap and I put it in the fridge and I come back to slice other types of cheese that I have left. But I noticed that one of the cheeses I was about to slice was weirdly cut. Almost like somebody ripped a piece off with their hand. But I was like, whatever, maybe someone had to slice the cheese when I wasn't here and they sliced it wrong. So I go finish up the other cheese I have left and I go back to the kitchen. Now tell me why this fucking gremlin is crouched down like Kodak by the kitchen counter with a handful of cheese chunks in his hand, standing up like he had stumbled across some cheese on the floor, and makes the announcement as loud as he could without screaming, "Hey Neb, I think you spilled some cheese back here." Now mind you, 1, I didn't spill any fucking cheese. And even if I did, the only cheese that I brought back there was already sliced. And this asshole was holding a handful of crumbled up cheese. Now my manager looks over and sees this, and then looks at me with a disappointed look and tells me I need to be more careful and can't be spilling the food. And you could just see the look of excitement in Mike's eyes as he tries to act like he had no idea how this cheese got here. So now I'm so confused as to what's going on for a split second, I'm trying to figure out how I dropped the cheese back there. But then I realized that rip that I had seen out of the cheese from earlier had to have been Mike's doing. So now I'm here like, damn, either Mike is trying to get me fired or I'm a fucking schizophrenic. But I decided I'm gonna leave it and see if anything happens again. So now the next day comes around and I'm slicing meat today. Pause. Chicken, turkey, roast beef, all types of meat. Now the roast beef comes wrapped up in like twine or whatever the fuck that string stuff is that makes it look like the Ninja Turtles midsection. And obviously we're supposed to cut off the string before slicing the beef. So usually I cut the string off, throw it in the trash, and then slice the beef. So at this point I just finished slicing the turkey and then the beef. And then I go back to the kitchen to get the chicken. Just as usual, when I go into the kitchen, Mike decides he has stuff to do in the sandwich station. And just as conveniently, when I come back, he happens to need to go back to the kitchen. So I don't really think anything of it at this point. He's just trying to avoid me, like he has been for the last week. But then I finish slicing the chicken, and I'm coming to the kitchen to get the cleaning stuff to clean my slicing machine when I see Mike standing next to the manager with the container of roast beef I had just finished cutting, sticking his hand in there while pointing something out to her. And then they both turn to see me walking into the kitchen, and I see this asshole holding a handful of string pieces from the roast beef. And now my manager looks at me and goes, "Nah, but you need to remove the string around the roast beef before cutting it. This could be bad if we serve a customer this. You can't keep making these kinds of mistakes." So now I'm looking at Mike, and he's looking at me as if he wouldn't have a clue of how this could have happened. But now I'm here like, okay, so let me see something. And I go out to the sandwich station, and the fucking string I threw out from the roast beef in the garbage is gone. Yeah, the garbage was empty. So now I know this guy is doing anything he can to fuck shit up for me. But I realized that he knew that I knew, even if I said something, the manager would take his side, since he's basically the manager himself, minus the ability to fire me. So I decided, instead of being a Randall like him, since he wants to make my work experience as shitty and uncomfortable as possible, I'm going to do the same thing to him. But instead of trying to get him in trouble, I was going to make him do the one thing I know he wanted to avoid at all costs: talking to me. So every day after that, I came into work and would intentionally find him and start conversations. I did it so much to the point where I could see he wanted nothing more than to clock out and get the fuck out of there. And I'm not gonna lie, it worked amazingly. He dreaded me talking to him so badly, he didn't even try getting me in trouble anymore. It was so bad, he started leaving work 30 minutes early every day because he knew that if he stayed till the end of the shift, I would be trying to be his friend. And he really hated that. Anyways, long story short, this made the job more tolerable, but they brought in more upper management who honestly had no idea what they were doing and would literally lie about things constantly, and the whole thing was just a stress fest. So eventually I ended up just quitting and telling them it was because I was moving to the UK, just because I felt like since everyone else is lying, why don't I get involved too? And I've never seen Mike or any of them ever again. Now, there are definitely a few other stories I could tell about that job, but I'm just going to leave it there because those were different arcs in that story. But let me know in the comments, what are some of your guys' experience in fast food or any type of job? Don't forget to leave a like and a sub if you enjoyed the video, and if this does well, I may do a part 2. And of course, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Here.